And we are officially live, or as live as you can be in the Midwest in the middle of winter. So it is currently in the Chicago region about 1 degree with a wind chill factor of somewhere in the range of 25 or 30 below zero. And are you warm and cozy up there on the north side of Chicago, Barrett?
Yes, I'm on the right side of the windows in front of me, the side that the heat is pouring into, and the furnace is working on overdrive. So,
This is severe, but my God, where you come from, the people up in Green Bay and Door County, and you go even further up around Duluth and International Falls, and the cold is tangible, to say the least.
yeah, it does. I remember a time when I was a kid where the temperature was negative 25 and the wind chill was negative 60. So, yeah, I mean, it's amazing what people will somehow survive.
Well, it's fascinating when you really start thinking about the mainstream vision of God as being this kind of like an assembly plant in Detroit, producing things, in a very mechanical fashion, stamping out new people and creating new little bunnies and creating the weather conditions that we're faced with. And you would wonder, what the hell is God thinking by trapping us, out in the midst of the tundra here during a blizzard? And of course, that's really what A Course in Miracles comes back and addresses, is that idea of, is this a concept of God that has any validity, or are we perhaps seeing God as distorted through the lens of the ego? And we can
Yeah.
really appreciate, the Course in Miracles during these times of extreme cold or extreme summer heat.
Yeah, my first tip off that something might be awry when I was younger was poison ivy. Because I was like, well, why would God create something like poison ivy? Because as a kid, and running around in the woods a lot, I got my fair share of that, and it didn't seem like that kind of gelled with this benevolent, kind God that we hear so much about. So that was my first clue that maybe there was more than the predominant story. And I
And
think,
that's quite interesting, because for me it was exactly the opposite. I, through my father's lineage, was lucky enough to inherit the right genetic makeup so that I could literally ingest poison ivy and it wouldn't affect me. So when I was a kid, they always sent me out into the woods ahead of the rest of the Boy Scout pack, and I would clear out the poison ivy and poison oak, and I could handle it with my hands, and I was completely immune to it. So again, that serendipitous image of God uh, making some people mighty over the plant, and others are subjected to the toxins of the plant. So what a bucolic nature that idea of God actually is.
yeah, yeah, and I think along those lines too, you'll hear about tragedies where somehow um, there was something that interceded, like there was a disaster, and for some reason, someone's car got a flat tire, and they avoided the disaster that might have killed them, and you'll hear things like, "Oh, well, God interceded, God took care of them." Well, it's kind of a nice thought, but it's kind of a mean thought, because doesn't that mean that God didn't care about the other people that got that were in the disaster who got killed, and all these questions were always running around in my head, and it didn't make sense until I started really studying the course, and hearing this idea that God doesn't have anything to do with this world, that this world is our dream, it's our imaginings, that God is that perfect love that's beyond the dream, and he doesn't kind of play with the kiddie toys that we're playing with here in our world. Um, that idea started to give me a true God, a God that really does love and really is kind. And I'm still working on accepting that fully, but I know that that idea, it really rings true in my heart, and it explains the whole poison ivy thing for me.
Yes, it definitely sorts the wheat from the chaff, and that theme that we see initiated with the start of a new year, and that recognition that this year something profound could happen within my life if I were to pick up the Course in Miracles and start working with the daily lessons, is kind of reinforced by the fact that the elements are doing what they're doing, and we just recently had a number of airline disasters and shootings all around the world and everything else, and so it's very timely right now to pick up A Course in Miracles and start that initial journey, because even if you don't actually make it through religiously every day in the study, it seems that the Course does have a very profound impact. If you pick it up and read a few pages randomly, it is going to start a process that goes in a systemic way through your consciousness. So, for those who are very good at being dutiful and showing up for the lessons every day, that's fine. But I don't think that Jesus had that expectation when the Course was given to Helen, that people would be that committed to doing it every day. But even the smallest amount of attention that you devote to A Course in Miracles does have a very long-term effect. And if you're in the early stages of your life or the middle of your life, by the time you get toward the end of your life, you will find that it has grown and flourished in ways that you are not necessarily aware of as you were on that journey.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that just really underlines the idea that we all have our own path, and there's really no right or wrong. I think a lot of times as we start going down our path, or even anywhere we are in life, we worry about if we're doing the right thing. Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing it well enough? There's this real sense we come from of, like, I have an emptiness that needs to be filled up, and if I do enough good things, then maybe I'll be worthy of that kindness and that compassion. But the truth is that your worthiness is guaranteed. That above all else is beyond question. The only thing that needs to be questioned is your lack of faith in that. And that kind of leads me into a section of the Course that jumped out at me today in chapter 17, section 7, the call for faith. In end of paragraph 3, Jesus says, "If you lack faith, ask that it be restored where it was lost, and seek not to have it made up to you elsewhere, as if you had been unjustly deprived of it. Only what you have not given can be lacking in any situation. But remember this, the goal of holiness was set for your relationship, and not by you. You did not set it because holiness cannot be seen except through faith, and your relationship was not holy because your faith in your brother was so limited and little. Your faith must grow to meet the goal that has been set." So I think Jesus here is telling us that it's always in our power. We always have the ability to make that choice for love, for unity, for remembering our truth, and that we can see that choice in every relationship that we have. So whenever we're experiencing some sort of sense of unkindness with our brother, with anyone in our life. We can say, I must not be seeing with your eyes, Jesus, because I'm not seeing this in a kind way. I'm not seeing it in a helpful way. Help me to use that vision in this situation. And then we just have that faith that we'll have a new perspective given to us. And it sometimes happens right away, and sometimes it doesn't seem to. But our persistence is a part of that faith. And we just keep going. We keep asking for help. And in a sense, our calls are always answered. There are just some times where we might not be totally open to hearing the answer, but it is always given. And yeah, that kind of makes me think of all that, Chris.
And you know, the beautiful thing that we are made aware of, that we are illuminated around, that comes in from the Course. In Chapter 5, Healing and Wholeness, there's a Section 4 talking about teaching and healing. And that starts off saying, every loving thought held in any part of the sonship belongs to every part. It is shared because it is loving. Sharing is God's way of creating. Interesting idea. Sharing is God's way of creating, and also yours. The ego can keep you in exile from the kingdom, but in the kingdom itself, it has no power. So once we start to step away from our ego, we enter into a realm of empowerment. And that goes back to that idea of having faith that we're making a journey here that has a very deep and profound meaning to us individually, but that every time we accept a loving thought, that is registered within the entire collective. So, you know, imagine how much one person can do in the course of 2 or 3 weeks of filtering out their negative thoughts and replacing them with loving thoughts with each encounter, with each individual that you come across. Even though you're not aware of it, you are sharing that in a healing way, and you have become a creator in a very profound way, and you have joined or rejoined that community of those who are within the kingdom. So our pardon me, our faith takes us through these various steps, but then beyond that, we don't have to go out and climb a mountain or start an institution or collect together 1,000 people and have, you know, a tent revival in order to affect the whole of our collective here on planet Earth. Every time we have a loving thought, that registers in everybody's consciousness somewhere. And maybe they are so deep asleep that they're not able to recognize it, but it nonetheless is there, and it's helping them to arrive at a higher position, at a higher place. So this is a very exciting concept when it comes to what the Course is doing within you and what you are doing on behalf of humanity, on behalf of God and His interaction or its interaction with humanity. So it's not a journey that is demanding a huge amount, and yet each small step has the potential of having a profound payoff.
Yeah, I think that ties right into the idea that there is no order of difficulty in miracles, which is the first miracle principle at the beginning of the text. It looks like some things are harder to do, and whenever I think of that idea, it always reminds me of Star Wars and the scene in, it might be Return of the Jedi, where Luke's spaceship is in the swamp, and to him it's a really big deal to try to move it with his mind. because it's different. There's a hierarchy of illusions in his mind, and obviously he's still learning that principle. And then what happens is the master Yoda comes forward and shows him that there really is no difference, and is able to move his starship out so he can go off on his adventure. And I don't know. That's always a fun way to think of that one.
Exactly, and it's again a way of bringing us back to that one consciousness, that one mind, and our profound need to disassociate ourselves from this sense of uniqueness and apartness, and to recognize that as we step back into the sonship or the collective or the divine, that all of the differences that we imagine that we have are made null and void, and we're not giving up anything significant within that because we're stepping into perfection. So who wouldn't want to give up the one side of the coin that look at what a brilliant orator I am? When you look at the other side of the coin, it's oh, but I have tuberculosis and I'm going to die in 6 months. That is what you're giving up. You're giving up that duality, all of the good things that you imagine that you have, but also all of the detriments that you have associated with that ego. And that causes you to be able to transcend all of the imperfections that we have taken on as a part of this earthly journey, and actually turned into a call to arms and trying to rally people to support us in our overcoming the obstacles of life. So how simple the real journey can become as soon as we realize that all of the obstacles were created when that ego was put into motion.
Yeah. And to be willing, it takes that willingness. We have to be willing to look at all of ourselves, and it's not easy because we do have a lot of these scary thoughts. We've got a lot of these beliefs that we're very invested in, and the idea of relinquishing those is threatening to that part of ourself. There's a line in the Bible, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear not, for thy rod and thy staff shall comfort me. And I think that kind of idea can help us, because the Course is filled with a lot of ideas like God is love, and we are kindness, but the other side of it is that there needs to be a willingness to explore the shadow and to see that the shadow is not as powerful as we thought it was. It reminds me of Jesus in his kind of personal messages to Helen during the beginning of taking down the Course. He said that she and Bill had to look at their hatred for one another. Now, that doesn't seem so flowery or fun, but the reason he said that was important was because they needed to acknowledge it, otherwise it was just going to stay in their unconscious and kind of be running the show from underneath the surface. So a big part of our work is to be patient, but to allow the ego to present itself when it comes forward, but to do so in a very non-judgmental and in that compassionate way of witnessing it.
Exactly. When we can merely be the observer, then we're no longer fueling the intensity of the ego, and the ego is a very committed concept that we have created. It is trying its very best to eradicate everything around it so that it ultimately remains supreme. And that, that kind of loops back into finishing up that particular section that I was talking about. Jesus goes on to say, um, the mind that was in me is still irresistibly drawn to every mind created by God, because God's wholeness is the wholeness of His Son. So God and God's creation are joined in union, and they are perfect, and they are indivisible. He goes on to say, you cannot be hurt and do not want to show your brother anything except your wholeness. So whenever you get into a position of saying, oh, look at what you did to me, oh, look at how you hurt me, then you're definitely taking the side of the ego, because only the ego is vulnerable. So that's the other positive gain that we all experience as we really start to step further and further into the philosophy of A Course in Miracles, is that we are invulnerable, we are invincible, and the only way that we can actually suffer is when we indulge the ego, or as things have been in the last couple of days, when we go outside without our coat on. So anyway, I think that's kind of it in a nutshell, is recognizing the gains we make by embracing the vision and the understanding that's offered to us in A Course in Miracles, and then being willing to, again, not so much go out and change the world, but to set in contemplation and change ourselves, and to encounter everybody that we encounter with a sense of love and forgivingness. I think that's probably the most astonishingly powerful thing that we can do, and that would be a good idea to initiate that journey as we continue to see the year 2015 begin to unfold in progress.
Yeah. I'd second that, Chris, and I just kind of wanted to say a real deep thank you to all the people who are watching this and enjoying this conversation that Chris and I have been having these several months so far, and just wanting to really kind of dedicate today's conversation to my grandma, who transitioned from the physical yesterday. I think that our individual connections with people can be representative of that connection we have with the divine. And I have a very deep love for her, and know that even though her body is no longer where she resides, on one level it never really was. She's always been in the heart of God, and she continues to be so. And that's the truth for her as well as all of us. So just to kind of put that out there.
Yes, and to know in truth that she has returned to love, and she's no longer troubled by that physical body that is subject to deterioration and decay. So my condolences to you, Barrett, and I'm sure that you will sense her presence as time continues to unfold.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I definitely feel she's here with me.
Great.
So,
well, we will be seeing you people in 1 week from today. So get out there and share the love and pass it around. And you have a warm and wonderful day, Barrett. And I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, you too, Chris. Bye.
Goodbye.